Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Welcome to Sporgy, the show that gives you half-ass sports fans giving their half-ass opinions.
And now, here are your hosts.
Fantasy Hack. Oh, this is it. Final show. Week 17. I'm Chris. JR's with me.
Hey, everybody. Happy holidays.
Jack's with me.
Merry Christmas to all.
Yes. And this is it. Last week. Yeah, if you're playing in week 17, we ain't got much for you. But it's kind of like season review-ish, sort of. So just get right to it. I believe there's all three of us took home a championship, so that's good. Gives our podcast a little bit of credibility. I won a league that I started like 10 years ago. I've never won it. I play with all my friends. It actually costs. I won a little bit of money at Christmas time, so that's good. How'd you guys do?
I was in 3 ships. I won 2 of them, and the third one that I lost to Jack. So congratulations, Jack. You won the Russ Greenberg Fantasy Football League.
I did. And I won that, and somehow, some way, I'm competing for a championship this week. I know, Week 17 Fantasy Championship, and I was very happy when I went to see when his lineup was I went to see the lineup today, and he has Lamar Jackson, who is not going to play. And then I was very crushed when I looked at his bench and saw A. Rodgers. So, I'm gonna have to earn that one.
Yeah.
Well, they clinched.
Well, I do have my quarterback starting out the season. I drafted Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield. So what a great thing that was. And then I picked up Stafford halfway through the year. He gets hurt. So in the semifinal, I made the bold move to bench Goff and put in Drew Lock, and he has guided me to the championship round. Now, do I want to stick with him or do I want to put Goff in? I don't know. I think I'm just going to stick with Drew Lock, just because I feel like he's playing for his job. But I don't know.
Well, I don't know if we're going to review each game, but I want to go right into the top scorers because this is an incredible. Jack usually does this, but I'm going to do it tonight because I have some stuff in front of me. Saquon Barkley outperforming all other running backs with 48. Kenyon Drake, 38. Aaron Jones, Lamar Jackson.
Aaron Jones had a big day.
All had 34 of those 3.
Saquon, where these last 2 weeks, if you could have turned it on 1 week earlier, I probably would have played in my big money league. Just 1 week earlier, Saquon. 1 week earlier.
But it gets better. Who are the top quarterbacks? Daniel Jones and Andy Dalton?
Andy Dalton, yep.
Wow.
Who would have thunk?
And
Daniel
what about
Jones, 41 points. Andy Dalton, 39. Top receiver, Tyler Boyd.
Tyler Boyd, yes.
What happened to those Bengals? They're supposed to be tanking. And behind him, Hunter Renfrow, 23.
Yeah.
They clinched the number 1 pick last week, and they said, hey, let's win.
Michael Thomas, 22. Julio Jones, 21. Devontae Parker, 20. Top tight ends, Jared Cook, 20 for the Saints. Mark Andrews, 19. Mike Gesicki, Dolphins, 18. A lot of players from scrub teams here getting it done. Top defense, the Indianapolis Colts with a huge 36 points. Top kicker, Sam Ficken, Penn Stater, kicking Ficken. Nick Folk for the Patriots, probably played on a lot more rosters with 13. So what a bizarre lineup of great performers in Week 16, the biggest week of the year. So, I'm looking down and seeing Barkley. Okay, yeah, I mean, you suffered for a lot of lean weeks with him and some injury, but at the end when the chips were down, he came through. And Kenyon Drake, I mean, given up for dead. He was on the Dolphins. No one would touch him with a 10-foot pole. He goes to Arizona. And who saw Arizona going to Seattle and beating the 12th man and beating them soundly?
Yeah.
Well,
what a bizarre week.
Beat him so bad, Marshawn Lynch had to come back.
And I think the Philadelphia Eagles probably terminated the tenure of Jason Garrett in Dallas by digging deep with a cast of practice squad players and reserves.
So the Eagles won the battle,
but
the Cowboys won the war.
I don't think the Cowboys won anything.
Yeah. The Cowboys could still back into the playoffs.
Well, yeah, the Eagles are not, it's all for naught if they can't go into the Meadowlands. And, hey, look at Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. They'd probably like nothing more than to ruin the Eagles' playoff chances. But, Yeah, for me, just beating the rival Cowboys was a great Christmas gift. So whatever happens from here, it's all gravy,
I had a team where I started Saquon and Kenyon Drake. I put up 172.
Wow.
Yeah, I put up 172 points.
Who would have thunk?
I stuck my claim in 5th place in that league.
Well, I want to give a shout out to the Oakland Raiders, who can make the playoffs if somehow, some way they win, and the Texans beat the Titans, and the Steelers lose to the Ravens, and the Jaguars lose to the Colts, and the Raiders beat Steelers on strength of victory.
It's a lot of ins.
You know what?
That's a lot of ends.
All I can think of when I hear you say that is the Jim Carrey meme. So you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah, but what about the
so-
Titans? They can make the playoffs too. Interesting.
They could.
Very weird.
One story I just have to tell in my big money Virginia League that Jack actually participated in this year. With 4 minutes remaining in the championship game, my buddy Jim from Michigan, in a league full of Virginia D.C. guys, who I'm an expatriate of, was winning 88-70 with 4 minutes left in the Packers Monday night game. Looks like he was coasting to a win. And his opponent had Aaron Jones. He had Devontae Adams. Adams already had his 100 yards and had a big day. Looking really good, and 4 minutes left in the game. Aaron Jones rips off a 56-yard touchdown. So in our scoring in our league, if it's over 41 yards, you get 8 points for that. Actually, no, 10 points. So it was actually 88-68 when this all happened. So it's a 10-point run for being a long run over 40 yards. 5 points because you get a point every 5 yards, and that run got him over 100. There's a 5-point bonus for 100-yard rushing. So on that one play, 20 points went up on the board, and that 20-point lead was gone just like that. So then it's 88-88, and of course, the Vikings couldn't move the ball, punted back to the Packers got the ball back, and of course, they're just trying to run the clock out. So it's handoff to Aaron Jones, and at one point he got enough to get 10 additional yards to get the extra yard to put the one guy up 89-88, Wayne's World. Wayne's World's up 89-88, and the very next play, Aaron Jones is stuffed for a 4-yard loss. So then it's back to 88. Well, then, like the last run before they were kneeling down, Jones got like 8 yards. So the final score is 89-88. Obviously, we'll be waiting for NFL stat corrections just in case. But I got a feel for my buddy Jim in Michigan, man. That was a talk about a bad beat. That was just a heart-wrenching loss when you're up by 20 with 4 minutes left. And
well, I didn't get to tell you guys this last week. I got into the championship game I was in by .04. Yeah, I talk about just making it. But that's fantasy football, right? That's why we all play.
It's fantasy football.
I had several victories like that this year. I had a few close shaves.
Well, I was very happy to announce that I took the Sporgy League. So for those of you listening from there, I'm gloating. I had 2 losses the whole year. I had a really strong team, but there's a lot of strong teams lost this week. Teams that were the highest scoring in the league had the most wins. It's just a weird week, and I would say fantasy football is like a minefield. You got to be good to be lucky, and lucky to be good. And those of you that are enjoying championships got a little bit of each.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, but I always manage for rest of season. I'm managing for rest of season for next season right now. I mean, everyone's got their own style, and and the reason I do is because you have to be ready for what Chris Carson went out this week. Who else went out? Godwin goes out last week. Derrick Henry all of a sudden doesn't play this past week.
I had him in the Sporgy League. That was
Ingram goes out because his calf just does something. Like it's
Dalvin Cook's out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got to always be ready. I mean, never, can't underestimate those handcuffs. If you got a Dalvin Cook, of course, his handcuff got hurt too, Madison. So then you were down to Mike Boone, and I picked up Mike Boone in like 3 leagues. I didn't start him in every league, but I picked him up so no one else could in some of the leagues. But as it turns out, he got a whole 2 points. The Vikings just failed to appear last night. Can't believe they played so poorly on offense in front of their home crowd. But
They look like they came to play the first half, but yeah, the second half they evaporated.
They were flat.
Yeah,
they were very
for
flat.
Cousins, you just never know what you're going to get.
Oh, and
It's like Pro Bowler
You
one
know what
week.
you're gonna get.
And going into that game last night, I was up 30 points. I had 120. My opponent had 91. I had Kyle Rudolph to play, and that was it. He had Devontae Adams and Adam Thielen. I figured I was done. I figured that's it. He's going to win. These two guys, all they need is to both have average days, and I'm cooked. No, that's fantasy football.
You got a blessing.
Yeah.
Congratulations to everybody listening who won a championship. Hopefully you got either money or hardware or both. Jack will be getting a nice
I will get some
trophy.
hardware. Yes, I will.
And it's coming to us from North Carolina, where many of my cousins live and have been winning for years. But the trophy's coming to Arizona, and we knew that already going in because it was father-son. Would have liked to beat you, Jack, but
The old man bite the dust. I won.
The student has become the teacher.
He beat me twice last week though, but I beat him when it mattered. Shit.
The
you win some, you lose some.
The league I won, we have a wrestling belt, so that's cool.
That's pretty cool, too.
I get to keep the belt for a year.
What do we... Nothing for the Sporgy?
No, because it's free. We got to maybe look into that. That league was pretty much started so Earl and Rich could learn how to play fantasy football.
Kind of like teaching you how to drink IPAs, right?
Pretty much, yeah. But,
on the Beer Nuts podcast, shameless plug.
Yes. Ooh. But so do we want to get into overachievers and underachievers this season?
Can I get a Lions fan rant about the season?
There's nothing to rant about. I told you.
SOL, same old Lions.
I was out on them when they lost to Oakland, but I knew they were done winning when they couldn't beat the Redskins. And it's
what happened to the reincarnation of the Patriots? Here we go. We got Hawkinson. We can't get Gronk because he retired, so let's draft Hawkinson. This guy's literally Gronk. We'll sign Jesse James. We'll bring in Amendola.
I wonder. The only thing. Good God, I can't believe I'm about to say this. I wonder if they've just been coordinating a high draft pick. Because just look at all of a sudden Stafford's injured, then Marvin Jones is on IR. I just wonder if a lot of these injuries haven't been so much injuries as they've just been let's try to get Chase Young or
what's
or
the
JK.
problem area? What's the problem area you think? You think it's defense? I think it's defensive front. They have what? Damian Harrison, that's it?
The offensive line.
Yeah, that's what I was
Stafford's always
gonna
running
say.
for his life.
He is, actually. That's a good point. And then Carry-On went out.
I heard a rumor, by the way, and this is supposedly from somebody that has connections to the Ford family, that Jerry Jones was really, really going hard after Stafford. Don't know if it's true. It's just a rumor, but I found that very interesting. Because
He is a Texas boy.
I thought that was really, really interesting. That
the Lions wouldn't do it.
Oh, why not? Maybe they could sign Dak.
If they get Chase Young.
Ooh.
I mean, they're right now they'd pick number 3. They're getting a good player next year. They could get Dobbins. They could get Chase Young. They could get Jalen Hurts.
They're going to get.
That'd be that'd be kind of cool.
What's the Lions? They're going to draft someone we've never heard of.
No, they'll
With the
draft
third
somebody.
pick,
They'll
we
draft
draft a
somebody
center.
that's a surefire Pro Bowler, and he won't be a Pro Bowler.
We'll trash them, because that's what we do. Yeah.
Let's see. Overachievers. Carson Wentz was not an overachiever. He was pretty disappointing the first half of the season, but you got to say down the stretch here,
The ultimate
really put the team on its back.
I think the ultimate overachiever, Lamar Jackson. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think
That's just
I
another
drafted
level.
him as a backup to Wentz, and that's the league I wanted.
I think everybody did.
the league I had him in. I drafted him in a Yahoo league. They have one bench position less than ESPN league, so I got Lamar in the 13th round. I got Lamar before I picked my defense, and he ended up being my starter the whole year.
My strategy this year, I waited till the 9th or 10th round to draft a quarterback, and then I took 2 in a row because I figure all the good ones are gone, so I'm going to take 2 middle of the road ones. And I had Lamar in probably I was in 10 leagues. I think I had him in 6 of those leagues. And in my Virginia league, it's a keeper league, and each year you can keep up to 2 players, but you got to take whatever round he was in and subtract 3. So next year, I drafted Lamar in the 10th, so I'll get to forfeit a 7th for him. this year, and then the following year 4, and then I'll probably throw him back into the. I'm not going to give up a number 1 for a quarterback, but so I got Lamar for the next 2 seasons, and gosh, I just hope he can stay healthy. It's amazing how healthy he's been. Way he runs and his style of play. You have to think that it's just a matter of time before he gets hurt, but it sure is fun to watch, and I hope he stays healthy. I mean. I'm not a Ravens fan, but I'm a Lamar fan. I love watching him play. He reminds me a little bit of Randall Cunningham.
And then overachievers as far as relative as to where they were drafted. The 2 running backs from the game we just talked about, from the Monday night game, Aaron Jones and Dalvin Cook. I mean, both of those guys went I know Aaron Jones went pretty low, and Cook went in I think the highest he probably went for people was maybe the 3rd round.
I think Cook was drafted in the late 1st, early 2nd in most of the leagues I drafted in. He was pretty highly, I don't think he lasted past the 2nd in any of my drafts. But
what about Darren Waller?
Darren Waller.
I think Darren Waller
kind of came out of nowhere. Now I do remember hearing great things about him on the Sirius Fantasy Channel, Sirius XM. They were hyping him up.
Josh Allen. As far as QB, I mean, he ended up being one of the top 10 QBs of the season.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews. Mm-hmm. Mark Andrews wasn't really highly regarded.
JR, should we do a group apology on this one? Chris Godwin. We both trashed his draft position. We both were like, why is this guy going so high?
I'm a Penn Stater. I was rooting for him.
But he was going. He was going too. We both thought, I thought for a number 2 receiver, he was going way too high because Mike Evans is the guy there.
He turned out to be pretty reliable until he just got hurt, but he lasted till week 15.
I think this is the year I turned the corner on Derrick Henry.
Oh, yeah, I've been preaching that all year. You know that. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have him for the championship. I still made it through.
Yeah. Underperformers, Aaron Rodgers. He's got to be at the top of that list.
Freeman.
Yeah, Devontae Freeman.
You could argue, despite the last 2 weeks, Saquon really didn't perform like first overall pick.
I think he did.
Yeah, I think he came back too early from his injury.
And Alvin Kamara, come on, man, what happened to all those touchdowns?
The last 2 seasons, he was money in the bank.
He was a touchdown machine. What did he have, like 2 or 3 this year?
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like he went out and then Murray showed everybody that he's good, and they were like, well, if Murray's getting it done, why not just ease him back into his spot? And that was very annoying for fantasy players.
It was annoying for fantasy, but good for the Saints because the Saints preserved Kamara, kept him healthier by not, running him into the ground. Having a 1-2 punch like a thunder and lightning really helped the Saints.
Underperformers, the entire Chiefs backfield.
Sad.
You could argue Mahomes too. Really, Mahomes was the Lamar Jackson of last year, and
they're going to the playoffs. But
he's still a great quarterback. He's still top 5 quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not what you expected Lamar Jackson numbers out of him this year, and you didn't get that. Now he did have some injuries.
Let's see here.
I'd say another disappointing pick. At least most of the weeks was Zach Ertz.
I was just about to say Zach.
Well,
Ertz.
would you chuck Goddard into the overachievers just because he was not even drafted?
Oh yeah, Goddard. Look, you got to give it to Zach Ertz for playing hurt against the Cowboys. He took that really bad shot to his ribs. I don't even think he's going to play this week. He's got broken ribs. And he actually went in and got a shot and got taped up and came back out there. He wasn't that much of a factor after the injury, but you know what? A lot of players would have tanked it out. And, say what you will, Zeke Elliott was a pretty solid performer, but a lot of people ripping on him for, when right before that fumble that the Cowboys had, he motioned to come out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
He was winded or something, and he's taking a lot of heat for that. So, superstar, making all the money, but a lot of people are questioning his heart a little bit.
Well, how about any Rams receiver that's not Cooper Kupp?
How about any Ram?
Yeah.
Except Cooper Kupp. Yeah, I agree. And it figures I had Cooper Kupp like the last 2 or 3 years, and this year he was dead to me. I'm like, I'm not
Robert
doing that
Woods.
anymore.
Yeah.
And he just switched places with Robert Woods this year. Last year, Robert Woods was the guy. This year, Cooper Kupp was the guy. You kind of get that with the Rams. You never knew from week to week. And then you got Tyler Higbee, man, really came on at the end.
What about
Stephon
O.J.
Diggs?
Howard?
Huge disappointment. Yeah, O.J. Howard. That was a guy that big things expected out of.
Bust.
Oh, here's a name that we've missed. This should have been one of the first names out of our mouths. Le'Veon Bell.
Oh.
How
How about Juju Smith-Schuster?
Yeah.
about Antonio Brown?
Yeah.
All the killer bees. Ben Roethlisberger got
Yeah, you know, that's a good point. All the killer bees, thanks
killer
for
bees.
nothing in 2019.
Yep, you all should have just stayed together and kept the band together in Pittsburgh, because as soon as you left, it all collapsed like a house of cards. And then Juju comes in and showed that he really couldn't handle that number one role once AB left. Of course, it's hard to blame him when you got, Duck as your quarterback.
How about Devontae Adams? I'd say he wild for where he was drafted. I mean, he was a top 10 pick. He was a first round pick in a lot of leagues for how he ended up finishing.
Good at the end, but in between he got hurt and was out for many weeks. But when he played and when he was healthy, he was effective.
That's correct.
So Alshon Jeffrey bust even when he played this year. Nelson Aguilar, probably not worthy of
Not even drafted.
Any Detroit Lion that's not Matt Stafford was an underperformer this year.
And why did they bring Kerryon Johnson back? Like you're saying, if they're tanking, just let him sit out the year and come back next year. But Kenny Golladay certainly is an overachiever, or at least met expectations. He was the one Lion you could probably count on as a starter every week.
I owned him on a couple teams. He was wildly inconsistent. 22 points one week, 4 points the next week. That kind of guy.
How about any Cleveland Brown minus Nick Chubb?
Yeah, you got a good point there. There was big expectations. I drafted Mayfield in a lot of leagues, and he wasn't on any of my rosters at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I gave up on him halfway through the season. I was just like,
If we're talking about wildly underperforming,
what about
Odell.
Beckham Jr.? Yeah.
Odell.
Oh, my God.
I don't know what to think about Odell, man. First, everybody said he didn't want to be in Cleveland. Now he's saying that he's coming back for sure, and they're going to do great things. He just doesn't seem to play with fire like he did in New York.
I think it's coaching. It's all coaching.
Yeah,
There's really no other.
That is one thing I have thought about the Cleveland Browns is they have the talent. They have a Heisman-winning quarterback. They got 2 national-winning, championship-winning receivers. They got Nick Chubb. They got Kareem Hunt. That team, I think they have a coach that doesn't know what to do with the tools that he has.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Dallas Cowboys.
That's about the Browns.
Look at the talent on the Cowboys. How can they not be winning? They got Amari Cooper. They got Zeke Elliott. Those guys didn't play with any heart in Philadelphia the other night. They were the better talented team. They had no business losing. Eagles are decimated by so many injuries. Their secondary was in shambles. I know Dak was.
This is an Eagles fan, everybody. Just saying.
No, I mean
your team won.
We were outmanned on talent, but not by heart. I think even Troy Aikman, the homer of the century for the Cowboys, acknowledged that he said that the Eagles played probably the best team game he's ever seen, because they played as a team and they played with heart, and they played all out, and they wanted it more. And you're in the NFL, you gotta play 60 minutes. And he was pointing out the Cowboys just didn't have any fire. They seemed like they were going out there and didn't think they had to play hard to win. But there's something wrong there, and I think Jason Garrett is the core of that rotten apple. I really do. Players aren't playing for him.
Yeah. Hey,
get a good coach in there that lights a fire under their butts. They should be winning playoff games. I'm sorry, they have the talent. I'm not going to deny that. I can't. I despise the Cowboys, but I acknowledge their talent level. And it's beyond me how they can't be performing better than they're what, 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Sporgy. ChristopherMedia.net.
Look in your home. Look in your office. Look in your home office. Everywhere you turn, there's so much smart. At Capella University, we think education should be smart too. Our game-changing FlexPath format puts you in control of your master's degree, so you can learn how, when, and where you want. Smart, huh? Yeah, we think so too. So if you want to take the next step in your career, make Capella your first step. Visit capella.edu to learn more. Capella University. Don't just learn smarter.
ChristopherMedia.net.
Sporgy.
Hey, we brought it up earlier about how about an entire team that underperformed for as far as fantasy players wise? How about any Pittsburgh Steeler? Any with a quarterback, tight end, any receiver, any running back.
Because the other team actually has played for Mike Tomlin, but individually there's just no fantasy relevance.
Now I would put their
James Conner's a bust.
I would put their defense in the overachieving category as far as
I agree.
What we expected out of them.
Well, what about minus maybe Henry and Austin Eckler, the Chargers?
Yeah, any Charger
train wreck this year.
Oh, Melvin Gordon, what did you hold out for? Eckler's better than you this year.
Yeah, Eckler's one of the best fantasy players in the league this year.
He was a huge bargain, wasn't he?
I picked him up at the beginning of the year.
Round?
Yeah, I picked him up, and he was like, oh my God, he was doing great.
And Keenan Allen, thanks for nothing.
Yeah, you know what? That's another experiment that I should have learned my lesson before with him. I had him this year, and you get
Williams
like one good effort, like a month out of him, and then the other 3 weeks are disappointments. I tried to unload him in trades, and no one would touch him from 10-foot pole. No, he's dead to me next year.
Well, going into next season, what are your top 5 draft picks?
CMC.
Yeah.
CMC.
Let's see, top 5.
So we got CMC number 1.
I don't
Cook
know how you
2.
cannot. I know this goes against everything we preach. I don't know how you can't think about drafting Lamar Jackson in the first round. Maybe not top 5, but if you got the 8th pick and all the big names are gone, I know it goes against everything we preached all year, but God, Lamar just...
Let's see, if I'm just going by the straight numbers here, based on right now, CMC, Michael Thomas,
money in the bank this year.
Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, and then Austin Eckler.
You know who leads the league in rushing yards is my man Nick Chubb. Are you kidding me?
Chubb.
And if and depending on Eckler's situation, I'd swap him out for Zeke.
In the 8th pick, I would honestly take Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs is pretty solid, and I'm not gonna, maybe I'm being a homer here. I really feel like the last half of the year, Miles Sanders is quietly becoming.
Well, Jordan Howard exists. He's still going to split everything. With
Jordan Howard may not be back next year. See how the contract stuff goes. His contract's up. Miles Sanders looks like a budding star. Maybe it's just I'm wishful thinking. I'm a Penn State.
Maybe he's going to have a Saquon year next year.
But you know what? This last month he has produced week in and week out, and that's when the Eagles lost a lot of players, and he stepped up in a big way. So maybe not a first rounder, but I'm looking at him mid-second round.
Mid-second round.
Devontae Adams, I think, is an end of the first round guy, one of the top receivers on the board. Michael Thomas, obviously, is, I think, the elite receiver in the game right now. But Adams is in that group right behind him. DeAndre Hopkins, underachiever. We didn't get him. He was an underachiever this year.
What about Tyreek Hill?
He was. I think he achieved about.
I think he did too, but I think I'm taking him relatively early.
I'm taking Tyreek Hill pretty high. Any other receivers, Chris?
Godwin. We haven't brought him up.
Yep.
Evans
had a pretty big year too, and I swore off Evans because I had him in a few years, and
Godwin had a bigger year.
Well, I'm really worried.
What do we do with Jameis Winston, man? 500 yards and 5 picks every week.
I think they're going to franchise tag him.
He threw for the most yards of anybody, I believe. I think he led the league in passing yards.
If you go by average per game, he is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, 13. He's the 14th best player in fantasy by average points per game.
Wow.
He is a top 20 fantasy player, even with all of his picks. So he's definitely probably one of the first quarterbacks that goes off the board next year.
Well, he should be, but a lot of people will.
He'll be one of the first. He'll be one of the first 10. He's not a top fiver.
He'll be a good value pick because a lot of people still think, oh, look at all those picks. But man, he was slinging it.
Yeah, I mean, and it looks like if we go by the numbers, I mean, the top 3 quarterbacks off the board next year are going to be Lamar, Deshaun, and Mahomes.
Well, I'm worried next year about the entire tight end position because there's like maybe 5 people that are locks.
Are you shitting? Are you shitting me? Matthew Stafford is the 4th best quarterback in fantasy. Matthew
Doesn't surprise me.
On an average.
Oh.
average per game
When
basis.
healthy.
That does not surprise me. He's always been a great fantasy quarterback.
He is the fourth best fantasy quarterback this year.
To our listeners, despite what I said about Lamar Jackson, there's a lot of these guys like Jameis Winston and Stafford that could have been picked in the 11th, 12th rounds. So while it's great to have the luxury of drafting Lamar Jackson, if he gets hurt, man, you're better off just waiting. You can get somebody that maybe isn't the next Lamar. Lamar Jackson himself went in like the 10th to the 12th round last year, if at all. Some leagues he wasn't even drafted. So, as much as I
at the end of last season, Lamar Jackson was a waiver wire pickup. I remember because I picked him up. That's you never know.
You never know. And
I want to see if he shows up in the playoffs this year because he did not last year.
Look at the top 10 picks going in from last year. I'd say at least 2/3 of them probably underperformed. Saquon underperformed. CMC, he delivered. I'll give him that.
He over-delivered.
Zeke probably delivered, maybe slightly under-delivered, but he was kind of who you thought he'd be. And speaking of who you thought they'd be, the Bears are who they thought they'd be too, right? It's Denny Green. The Bears are who we thought they were. Mitch Trubisky, epic fail.
You know who wasn't we thought they were?
The Lions.
David Johnson.
Oh, David Johnson.
That's right.
Be bagging groceries.
Bust of the year. Yep, he switched place with Kurt Warner. He's back in Iowa bagging groceries.
And David Johnson and Antonio Brown can go out for their bust of the year dinner together.
Yeah, those two, boy. I don't think there's too many people won chips that drafted those two.
No.
Well, still, I got to say the tight end position is just going to be ruthless next year because we have maybe 5 locks. We got Waller, Kittle, Kelsey, Hurts, maybe Hunter Henry, and that's it.
Mark
who
Andrews.
else? Evan Ingram. Yeah, Mark Andrews is a big one. Evan Ingram. You can't touch Ebron or Doyle because they split.
Watch out for Dallas Goedert.
Dallas Goedert's a good one.
Do you not believe in T.J. Hawkinson, Jack?
I knew somebody was going to say that.
I believe in him.
I believe in
He's in
him.
that second tier.
If they can get him the ball.
So I think actually this year it would only seem like there was 3 or 4, whereas next year there's going to be 7 or 8. I think it's actually going to be a decent year for tight ends. I'm a little worried about receiver, really. You don't have those automatic locks like Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams are the only two I can. Who else am I sure there's more?
My underrated pick of next year has got to be DK Metcalf.
DJ Chark. I thought you were.
DJ Chark's a good one. No, but DK Metcalf, I like what I see out of this man.
Yeah, I like him too. I had him in a couple teams.
What about the rookies coming in next year? CeeDee Lamb will be pretty good. Jerry Jeudy will be pretty good. I don't know. We'll have to see what they do when they get to their squads.
Where is it? C.D. Lamb supposed to be the best receiver coming in, and then J.K. Dobbins supposed to be the best running back coming in.
I still have a lot of faith in Jerry Jeudy as well.
Joe Burrow.
Bungles. Get the job done.
The Bengals really need to draft an offensive lineman with their first pick, and they won't.
No, they won't. Don't even think about that.
Because I don't care who you get behind there if they're running for their life. That's why I didn't draft Joe Mixon in any leagues, which actually Joe Mixon turned into an overachiever, didn't he?
Yeah, there's a tale of 2 Joe Mixons, first half and second half.
Joe Mixon.
But Joe Mixon, I remember everybody on the radio, don't touch him. There's no offensive line in Cincinnati. And for the first half of the season, like you said, he was a non-factor. But, boy, he came through down the stretch.
Jack and I had a show where we talked. We determined called the Joe Mixon situation because what do? He's getting the volume, but he's not performing.
Volume.
Do you drop him or do you just ride it out?
Well, goes to show,
it's like when I had Gurley this year. I took Gurley with my first pick, and he just, come on.
There's an underachiever you didn't mention, Todd Gurley.
I don't know. I'm really worried about that arthritis in his knee.
He didn't seem to be the same Todd Gurley this year. He really didn't.
See, I kind of put him is not under. He kind of ended up finishing right where he did relative to his draft position, I think. I mean, granted, there's a lot of people who reached for him because of his name, but where he was generally going, he kind of finished where he was drafted.
Yeah, there was enough doubt that he fell a little bit, and I'll give you that. But he certainly wasn't last year's. He was a shell of last year's.
Oh no, last year's Todd Gurley was a top performer.
Was that 51-54 game against the Chiefs?
Yeah.
Which I still was probably the best game I've ever watched. That was so good.
So, like, we're unanimous. Next year's number one pick is CMC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Only because I can't think of anybody that even comes close except for Dalvin Cook.
I think Cook will be in the top 3. I don't know whether people will undervalue Michael Thomas just because he's a wide receiver, but man, I had Thomas in my Vegas league, and he was money in the bank every week. Very, very seldom were you disappointed in Michael Thomas's performance, and I believe he led the league in receptions. So PPR, he's lights out.
Well, can I get a hot take for next year? Will Antonio Brown be on an NFL roster?
Yes.
I think he will, but I don't think he'll play week 1. I think he'll suspend him for first 4 weeks or something stupid like that. But
as big of a douchebag as that guy is, he's a great football player. Like on his one fantasy performance, 16.5 points this year. That's just him getting in. That's just him getting in the game, running his routes.
Yeah.
Tom Brady feeding him the ball. That wasn't even him trying to be a superstar or anything. He is good at football.
All the dude needs is a good psychiatrist and maybe a personal.
Well, I guess
keep him off the interwebs.
Well, I guess what happened to him is there was a coach that he had in his life. There was a guy that kind of kept him from acting like he's been acting, and the guy died. Oh. It was a coach from Central.
Yeah. Oh, no, I also saw a thing when he took that hit from Burfict, he was never the same. Watched a video on that. It was like the day that Antonio Brown was ruined. And everything actually lined up. Everything after that incident and everything happened. I don't know. He's still a good fantasy player, though. I will take him if he's on the team next year.
If I go by right now, if I do it by average points per game, according to ESPN, I did the flexes because QBs are QBs. The top 10 would be McCaffrey, Michael Thomas, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, Chris Godwin, Austin Eckler, Zeke, Saquon, Julio, and Derrick Henry.
Michael Thomas wasn't in that list?
He's number 2.
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. I missed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you go, Derrick Henry would be a top 10. Derrick Henry would be a first-round pick next year.
What about Julio?
He was right before Derrick Henry. He'd be number 9. D-Hop getting edged out. He would be number 11.
Yeah, he was kind of a disappointment this year only because of where he was drafted.
And Saquon barely made it. Still would be a top 10 pick.
Is there any team next year that we do not want one fantasy player on? Probably the Jets and the Dolphins.
Lions.
In that list.
Dolphins.
Jets.
I don't know.
Dolphins.
Stafford we talked about, and maybe Galladay. I think the Lions have some value. Carry on, Johnson.
And it depends on who they draft.
Who are you going to draft from the Dolphins? Parker? Devontae Parker?
Yeah.
What about the Jets, though? Unless Bell is... Well, even if Bell is back, he does nothing this year.
I won't be drafting Bell next year. I had him this year, and he... My bonehead play of the year, and I think I've already mentioned it on this broadcast, but I'll self-deprecate myself one more time for having the 4th pick in my Vegas league and passing on Zeke Elliott because he was holding out and taking Bell.
Hey, man.
That was the bonehead move of the year for me.
When was that draft? Was it how?
It was like a week before the season.
Yeah, I can't fault you because my rule after last year was if you are not doing football-related activities, I'm not drafting you. I don't care because I got burned by Le'Veon Bell last year. So because of him, I had that rule.
You would have taken an L.
I would have done that rule. Like, no, sorry. Zeke ain't playing football. Sorry. You don't get to be drafted. I drafted him in our Sporgy League only because like an hour before our draft, I got a notification from the Fantasy Life app that like, hey, it's a done deal in Dallas. They're going to announce it in the morning.
Yeah, we had our draft live in Las Vegas. I actually drove up to Vegas for the draft, and it's funny. The guy I drafted next to, Kevin, a good friend of mine, had always finished near the bottom, never done very well, and was almost considering giving it up. You know, he's been in the league for like 8-10 years, never won, and he sat next to me, and the whole draft he was asking me little pointers, and we'd had a couple beers before we even went to the draft, and I told him, whatever you do, get a good tight end because, you know, that's one just dead spot on your roster if you don't get a good tight end. Well, he got Kelsey right before I picked, and he was asking me questions through the draft, and he's a good guy, and I was kind of helping him. Now he won the league, and I finished 5th. So I won't be sitting next to him next year.
You coached him to victory.
In a way, I did kind of give him some pointers, but I'm happy for him. He's a really, really good guy, and played all those years and was kind of getting down on himself and thinking about hanging it up. And I'm happy for him. You know what? If I couldn't win, he's probably I'm happy for him, even though he is a Washington Redskins fan. But the name of this team is the Nevskins, the Nevada Skins, and the Nevskins.
There you go. Well, guys, final thoughts for the season?
Well, don't we have some bold predictions to review before we go to that? What was everybody's bold prediction? I think mine was to get no. I
write them down every week.
Mine, my one last week was Devontae Freeman to score a touchdown, which he didn't, but he did get one this week.
Let me see here.
I can't remember what mine was. I think I lost mine. I can't remember.
I just have a stack of papers. All have just tons of weeks. Yeah, that one's definitely not it because I had Jacob Hollister at my pick him up on waiver wire. What else? What's this? No, is that it?
I also remember that I was this close to picking the Eagles to beat the Cowboys, but everybody said, no, you can't do that because that's your team. So,
yeah, I can't find my sheet of paper.
Just edit this out, Chris. We can forget about that we had bold predictions because none of us remember what our predictions were, except Aaron did pick the Bengals to win, which they didn't.
They did not. Wait, did they?
No, they made it a game, I think.
No, because Boyd had that big day, sure. No, I think you're right. I think they did lose.
They still found a way to lose, I think.
I can't remember. I don't know. Can't remember. I still think they might have won, though.
Oh, we'll look that up.
What are your predictions for next year?
Jeez, who knows?
I have... Well, I'm gonna say my division winners. So next year, AFC, I got.
Bengals lost to Miami, by the way, 38-35.
Okay, well, I got the Chiefs winning the AFC West next year. AFC North, Ravens. AFC South. That's a great division. I want to say the Titans are going to win it next year. I mean, I'll take the Patriots again in the East. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take the Bills in the East next year. The AFC East, Bills. I am a nut for saying that one,
true.
But I'm going to take the Bills. I'm going to take the Bills in the NFC. NFC West. I'm going to take the 49ers. I like the 49ers better than the Seahawks. But as for the North, probably narrowed down to the Packers and the Vikings. Give me the Vikings, even though I think they're going to have a first-round exit. But South, NFC South, give me the Saints. NFC East, give me the Eagles. Pure homer pick.
Well, I'm going to take this in another direction. I'm going to ask Chris to follow my lead. Let's just predict what's going to happen in the postseason this year. There's too many variables with the draft not even being held to predict next year, for me anyway. But,
that's right.
So I'm going to say... who do you think, Chris, who do you think is going to make it through to the championship games and the Super Bowl? Because I like the Saints to be in the Super Bowl this year. I think they're going to be. I think they're going to make it through. I think the San Francisco 49ers were looking great, but they're kind of fizzling down the stretch here. Seattle just lost to the Cardinals. I don't see them doing it. I think the Saints are peaking, and that's who I'm going to pick to represent the NFC. And the AFC, I just can't pick against the Ravens. They just look like a well-oiled machine. I can't pick the Patriots. They just don't look – there's something missing. It's probably Gronk, maybe even more things than that. I kind of like the Bills to maybe make some noise in the playoffs, but in the end of the day, I think it's Ravens-Saints Super Bowl. That's my prediction.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. I think the NFC Championship game is going to be the Pack and the Saints. I think you'd have You'd have a gunslinging NFC Championship game with the Saints coming out on top because I think overall as a whole they're a better team. And then the AFC, you can't. I don't think anyone else but Baltimore and New England come out of the AFC. The Chiefs are too. The Chiefs. The Chiefs got issues, man. Mahomes can't do everything.
I'd love to see Andy Reid win, but I don't see them getting by the Ravens. We'll see.
Well, I'm going to defy all logic and say the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl this year.
Oh.
because all y'all are doubting them like you do every year, and then they get that underdog mentality, and then Brady stands up on that gigantic stage, and there's like 100,000 people there, what it seems like, and then he's like, "We're still here. We're still here."
I will say,
they magically regain form and they make it to the bowl.
I will say, if they win this year, this is it, because this one puts them over. Right now, they're tied with Pittsburgh. They win this year, this makes them officially title town, and then Tom can retire.
But I'm picking them to go to the bowl, and then another underdog pick. I'm taking the Seahawks to go to the Super Bowl.
They couldn't even beat the Cardinals at home.
I don't care. They have no running game. Now they got Marshawn Lynch. The stars have aligned.
Oh, come on.
Look at that.
Marshawn hasn't played football in a year, man.
I don't care, but there is no better home field advantage than the Saints. Than the Seahawks. I do think the Saints close second. But I don't know. I just feel like the Seahawks are going to make it happen.
I'll bet you a 6-pack of Sprite.
Make it Sprite cranberry. You got a deal.
Sprite cranberry.
All right.
Marshawn Lynch will be watching the Super Bowl eating Skittles.
Yeah,
and not in uniform. But that is a bold prediction, but I don't see it.
All right,
everybody. I have final notes as we close the chapter on another fantasy football season. I wanted to just say one thing. For those of you that have leagues where week 17 is irrelevant, one of my leagues has a great kind of way to make week 17 interesting. We pull $100 from the prize pool, and this is a money league with it's like $250 to get in, so we have some money to play with. But we pay $10 a team, and we have a Pro Bowl for week 17 where you can pick anybody from any team as long as he's on a roster in the fantasy league. Which makes it fun because if you pick a guy that's not in the fantasy league and you put him on your roster, he gets a 0 when it's scored. So it takes a little bit of work by somebody to compute all the points and tally it up, but it's really fun. So this week, Jack and I are in that. We'll get to pick, kind of like an all-star team, and it might be 8 guys at the Lamar Jackson. Well, not this week because he's not going to play, but you can pick anybody. So you could conceivably pick the same lineup as a competitor, but there's always a little bit of variance. So just a suggestion to make week 17 relevant and fun, and you got to do your homework because Lamar Jackson will probably be watching from the sideline. They're not going to risk his himself to injury. So it's a fun thing, just something to consider. I'll leave you with that.
I tried a best ball league this year. That was a lot of fun. It was you
low maintenance.
Yeah, it's you draft a team and then that's it.
Your best possible lineup counts.
Yeah, I took second place in that.
There's no sitting on the bench, and his points are wasted. You have a deep roster, you'll do well because I like it. I'm not in one, but I'd like to be in. I was in one several years ago and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and into this podcast, I look forward to this every week. It was cool. I enjoyed doing it with you guys, especially too, Jack. You weren't initially part of the program.
No, I was not.
You were brought in, and you've been a big addition to it. So I've enjoyed doing this with you guys, and I look forward to doing it next season. There's talk we might do it for baseball.
Ooh.
Yeah, I play fantasy baseball.
Me too.
As well as I.
Yeah. But other than that, I enjoyed this season, guys, and I look forward to next season. It gives us all credibility that each one of us won a championship this year. So, we know what we're doing a little bit. Just
1-2 here.
Yeah, that's twice as many as me.
That's all right. We can all hoist something.
Yeah. So if
thanks for having us, Chris. We look forward to next year already, and everybody. Happy holidays, and hope you're enjoying a championship. If you're not, come back with us next year. We'll do our best to help you along the way. Guess just remember the mantra: you got to be good to be lucky, and lucky to be good.
Any final thoughts there, Jack?
It has been a very long and confusing and hard to predict season.
Well, that's fantasy football, right?
That is fantasy football. We say that every year. And once again, I hate you, David Johnson.
Yes. Yeah, don't be fooled by David Johnson again next year, everybody. Well, other than that, thanks for listening. And if you have a lineup, set it. And just our advice for week 17 is pay attention to the injury report.
And pay attention to who's being rested.
Yeah.
I.e. most of your significant Ravens.
Yeah, a lot of people all of a sudden are going to show up on the injury report with conditions they didn't even know they had. But other than that, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next season.
See you next year.
Merry Christmas.
Adios, amigos.
Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Discovery Plus is the greatest collection of real-life entertainment on the planet. 55,000 episodes from networks like TLC, HGTV, and tons more. Woohoo! Discovery Plus. Stream now. Stream what you love.
ChristopherMedia.net.
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for listening, and thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.